I've been fighting for the environment and for people to kind of open their eyes to what nature can offer us my whole career. You know, it's about something very big we're fighting now. I think it's almost about saving the soul of humankind to prove what we are. And music, I think, plays a huge role because we talk about the environment way too political. People don't understand these things. They don't emotionally connect to the way politicians talk about the environment, and that bothers me a lot. And music can talk, and art can talk, and movies can talk about it in a way that hits our hearts.
It's time to change the world. It's time for something better. We're telling the stories of people who are changing the world and how you can help. Our daily actions have a massive impact, so what will we do about it? We can remake the world, because guess what? We can. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Gardner, and this is We Can Remake the World, a podcast about people who are changing the world and how you can help. Every episode, if you're not familiar with us, we start with some good news, just to focus on the positive. So here's the good news for today. Today's good news focuses on what citizens can do and are doing to help people across the world who are suffering from global conflicts that are completely out of their control. We'll start in Yemen, where war has been ongoing since 2014, unfortunately, and over 20 million people are estimated to be in need of humanitarian assistance. The situation there could really use some boosting. And one small coffee shop in Brooklyn is hoping to change minds and taste buds around Yemeni products and to directly support Yemeni farmers. The Yafa Cafe in Brooklyn, run by Yemen-born and Brooklyn-raised Hakim Suleimani, sells Yemeni coffee beans, working directly with farmers in Yemen. One of those farmers is an 11th generation coffee grower. Coffee in Yemen is part of the cultural heritage, and it's largely believed to be the birthplace of coffee, so using it as a means to expose Americans and international visitors to this coffee shop to the legacy of Yemeni agriculture is especially meaningful. And Suleimani works to ensure fair trade practices are involved with his relationship with these farmers so that he can support at least one segment of the local Yemeni economy at an incredibly volatile time. Changing minds around Yemen is especially important at a time when I think most of us associate that country with conflict and little else. There's so much more, of course, that we can all do to move closer to peace in Yemen and to provide relief on the ground. But Suleimani's work is just as important to the farmers he works with as anything else being done. Buying coffee beans from the Yafa Cafe in Brooklyn can support his mission. You can, of course, go to the Yafa Cafe if you live in New York City. It's near Brooklyn's Sunset Park. Or you can support the Yafa Cafe's mission by ordering their beans online and shipping them around the world. You can find them at yafabrooklyn.com. That's YAFABROOKLYN.com. And now to Ukraine. From March 2nd to March 3rd, global Airbnb users booked over 61,000 nights in homes across the Ukraine with no intention of visiting. A creative social media campaign invited Airbnb guests around the world to book stays with local Ukrainian hosts but not show up, creating a direct pipeline of donations to support citizens who can make use of those funds in whatever way is most helpful to them, giving them the money directly, not through any nonprofit or relief organizations, which of course are also helpful too. But it takes the middleman out. This translated to almost $2 million being sent to Ukrainians on the ground in just 48 hours. And Airbnb.org, the nonprofit organization of Airbnb, has committed to offering free short-term housing to up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees who are fleeing their homes. This is a continuation of a program that Airbnb.org announced last year with the creation of its Refugee Fund, which has called upon the support of over 4,000 individual donors to continue to build programs for refugees and asylum seekers around the world, especially in the Middle East, who need somewhere to land after fleeing their home countries. If you'd like to get involved, visit airbnb.org/help-Ukraine. You can either donate to the program, which helps Airbnb to fund housing for refugees, or you can offer your own home or rental property directly to refugees through the program. This is especially powerful for our listeners in Europe. Again, there's so much more we can all do to provide relief for the innocent people on the ground in these conflicts, which are so frustrating. But doing whatever we can, wherever we can, is a huge step toward making our presence felt in solidarity with those who have done nothing to call this conflict upon themselves. Keep doing all you can to call for and support peace and relief efforts, and let's hope we all see an end to these and, frankly, all other wars as soon as possible. Rather than falling into the trap of believing that humanity is hopeless or doomed, or that we're all in unavoidable danger, let's stay focused on the action we can take to provide relief, to provide peace, to advocate for peace with our governments and within our communities. Let's not allow the actions of a few influential people make us believe that we are powerless or unable to serve others or unable to shape our own path as a global community. War is never inevitable, and the escalation and continuation of war is also never inevitable. Let's find, seek, and build solutions in whatever way we can where we are now. Today, we are thrilled to host one of my favorite artists making music today, Aurora. She inspires me all the time, and her music plays around here almost daily. I tell everyone about her, and I'm so grateful to have been able to speak with her recently about her passion for nature and the earth, why she believes each one of us can be and is a world changer, and all the things that are good about this world. And I'm so excited to share our conversation with you today. Throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, music has played a crucial role in helping us to understand our world and in shaping how we see the world and how we see ourselves and each other. From the rallying cry of songs like Which Side Are You On?, which grew out of the labor movement in the United States in the 1930s, written by activist and poet Florence Reese, to Nina Simone's Mississippi Goddam, first performed at New York's Carnegie Hall in 1964 in response to the racist bombing of a church in Alabama and the murder of Emmett Till and Medgar Evers in Mississippi, to John Lennon's musical prayer for peace, Imagine, written in 1971, to U2's Morning Cry for violence inflicted upon innocent people and civilians by English military and law enforcement, Sunday Bloody Sunday. Songs have helped us process world events, shape our ideas around who and what we are or could be, and to help us envision something better for ourselves. Music reaches people on a level beyond words, to encourage, uplift, inspire, galvanize, to call people to action in some cases. Artists like Tracy Chapman, Bob Dylan, Billie Holiday, Leonard Cohen, Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell, India Arie, Her, and so many more have written songs that ask searching and difficult questions. Why do humans treat each other as less than equals? How can we be better? Michael Jackson's Earth Song asked, what have we done to the world? And as recently as 2020, Black Lives Matter activists have used his They Don't Really Care About Us to rally their own supporters and activists to speak out against oppression and the ignorance of human dignity and human rights. Aurora is an artist who is continuing this tradition, bringing big ideas to her music. Norwegian singer and songwriter who has been building a loyal and passionate following since she released her first EP in 2015 and her first album in 2016. You may have heard of her song Runaway, which Billie Eilish and millions of others circulated around TikTok last year. Or you may recognize her voice from the Frozen 2 soundtrack, from the Oscar-nominated song Into the Unknown, which features Aurora's voice at the beginning of the song. She performed this at the Oscars ceremony in 2020. Aurora often writes about nature, the earth, and about our connection to life outside of just humans.
The sea waves are my evening gown, and the sun on my head is my crown. I made this queendom on my own, and all the mountains are my throne.
Aurora also writes often about the marginalized and underrepresented in society, about the underdogs and the quiet ones, to use her own lyrics. In her writing, she writes about this quiet strength and beauty that exists in those of us who consider ourselves to be a bit different from the mainstream, a bit outside of the ideas of society which kind of seem to run the world a lot of the time, which encourage us to be competitive, judgmental, exploitative, and destructive. Aurora believes that that's not true for all of us, and maybe not true even for most of us.
The underdogs are my lions, the silent ones are my choir. The women will be my soldiers, with the weight of life on their shoulders. There is a flaw in man-made matters, but you are pure, and we have to get you out of here.
She has spoken several times about her belief that all of us have the power to influence the world, and that what we can do to make the world a better place can be as simple as being kind or expressing ourselves more fully, freeing ourselves from the limitations or restrictions that society sometimes places on us.
I know I'm just a girl, but can I change lives? If I am nothing, if I am trying, I think I can.
In short, we all have the power to be ourselves and to be influential in making a better world. There is a sense of purpose to Aurora's music, and a core belief that I've found that the young people of the world, especially, both young in age and the young in heart and mind, who refuse to believe that our world is hopeless or doomed, and who refuse to be cynical, and who refuse to stop believing in a better way, that those of us who feel this way are full of purpose, and that our purpose is to remake this world into something more beautiful, more peaceful, more respectful of the earth, more aligned with nature, and more aligned with our better selves, our better qualities. That we should dream bigger, fight harder, and believe more in our ability to create the world we want to see.
And we become nighttime dreamers, the street walkers, the small talkers, when we should be daydreamers and moonwalkers and dream talkers. And we become nighttime dreamers, the street walkers, the small talkers, when we should be daydreamers and moonwalkers and dream talkers and real life.
I'm so excited to share our recent conversation with Aurora, who took time from a very busy press and touring schedule focused on promoting her newest album, The Gods We Can Touch, which was released on January 21st of this year, to spend some time with us, talking about the challenges that our world presents us with, how we can overcome them and find a way out of despair, and what she believes about the power of music and art to reach us on a deeper and more powerful level to create a more peaceful, equal, and sustainable world.
Let her say the word, she is just a girl. Let him say the word, he is just a boy.
So thanks for joining joining us, Aurora. Really excited to speak with you and really grateful for your time. And congratulations on the new album release, The Gods We Can Touch, that came out last month.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to start by speaking about something that I really resonate with and that I really appreciate about you, and that's your connection to nature, which you speak about quite often. We focus a lot on nature and conservation on our show, and I'd love to hear from you about what inspires you about nature and how it influences your music.
I'm sitting right by my window now, and it just started snowing, and the snowflakes are falling so slowly down. It's very magical. Well,
nice.
But things like that, for example, are just the slow tempo of the snowflakes. And the slow tempo and like the nature evolves and moves in its own pace, and it doesn't change for anyone. It just follows its own instinct. I am really I think this world is a very demanding place. I think being a human being sometimes is way too overwhelming and way too much pressure. It's very hard to be a human these days. It's like a super sport. And I think when you allow yourself to spend time in nature and you realize that out there, all of these things we care about in our world doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how you look or what clothes you're wearing or the things you regret. Like, things like that doesn't matter out in nature, and you're allowed to simply just exist and sit there. And you're bigger than the small bugs, and you're smaller than the trees and the mountains, and you're perfect just the way you are, sitting there in harmony with everything else. It's a very rare thing to experience, and I just love that nature offers you this incredible gift, and she asks for nothing in return. And I wouldn't, like, no music would exist without the earth. You know, nothing beautiful would ever exist without our planet and without the nature that exists around us. I'm just constantly overwhelmed by its beauty and its dangerousness and complexity. It's just a magical thing right here, all around us, all the time.
I love what you said about nature just is itself and allows us to also just be ourselves. And also to remember that everything we have has come from nature. Even things we've created that are now artificial, they still started in nature. And it's so important to recognize that and to honor that. You know, I find in your writing, you write a lot about things that are bigger than just yourself. It's not just your personal experiences or emotional journey. It's also about other people and encouraging them, and about nature and encouraging us to acknowledge it and protect it. Is that a conscious choice, would you say, to write about things that are bigger?
Well, I've just been more inspired by things that are bigger. And I don't really know. Honestly, I don't know if it's conscious, a choice I've made, or just something that happened. But I know when I look into my own heart, I know that I am often more inspired by what happens around me. And maybe how that makes me feel, and asking questions about things and speaking up against injustice and fighting for the things I love. Like, that inspires me much more than to write about my own personal. Maybe I think it's scary. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. But I feel like whatever you are going through is kind of personal to me, because we exist here together. And the battles you see going on out there in the world, I still find them personal, even though it's not directly towards me. It's still like you're a part of it still, so it's kind of hard to know what's personal and what's not personal. But I have a lot of stories I need to write about before I write my own. I know that for sure.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Speaking of battles, I know for your third album, A Different Kind of Human, Step 2 is the title, which I really love. You've spoken in the past about how you almost see it as a battle cry and encouraging people to feel strong and to be ready for a kind of battle. And I'd love to hear you speak about what you think is worth fighting for. What is that battle that we each face as individuals and also together as this sort of human community?
I feel like it's quite simple. I fight because it just makes sense. It doesn't make sense to not fight. And I feel like it's about more than, it's about something very big we're fighting now. I think it's almost about saving the soul of humankind, to prove what we are. If we were sent here as an experiment that have lasted for hundreds of thousands of years, we have to show to ourselves, to the people before us and after us, to the gods and goddesses, or whoever is watching, that we are worthy of ourselves and each other, of love, and that we didn't just ruin everything. It's just too sad. So it gives me inner peace to know when I die, because I'm not forever. At least nature might be forever, and the sun will still rise in the morning, and the trees will lose their leaves in autumn, and snow will fall in January, and all of these things. That it just gives me inner peace to know that at least these things will just keep on going and keep on being the way they always have been. And I guess fighting for equality, fighting for love, it just makes sense, because it's so pointless to be against something as pure and beautiful as the right to love, or the right to exist or express yourself. It's such a small thing to ask for,
Yeah. I think the point you make about perspective is so important, that nature can offer us a perspective that we're just a small piece of this big, beautiful, living thing. Yeah. And if we can remember that we owe so much to that, and also are part of it, that there's something bigger than us, maybe we won't take our own problems or our own egos so seriously.
I think so too. And imagine how there are so many unhappy people in our current world. And I think it has a lot to do with perspective, and that we have forgotten a lot of things we used to know. And I think it makes our hearts confused.
Yeah. Yeah. And it almost feels like we have a responsibility to remind ourselves and each other of that, to reconnect with nature, to reconnect with each other in very real ways. And technology can be a tool, but we have to make sure that it's authentic, and we're really connecting with each other beyond all of this kind of craziness and this world that encourages us to almost fight against each other, to remember that we have so much more in common.
I know, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And it's weird, because just imagine that we have existed for hundreds of thousands of years, maybe even over 1 million, I think I read about, and we've been here for so long, and most of the destruction we have inflicted on our planet has happened the last 100 years out of 1 million. It's so scary, and it's so that the more greedy we get, I find it hard to come to terms with and to accept that that our nature is being greedy and being, careless. I don't accept that as being the truth. So then you fight to prove that it's not.
Yeah.
And we have currently found only one planet in this whole big endlessness of nothing and everything, in our whole galaxy universe. We have found one planet with life, and we're still managing to ruin it. It's just too sad. I just can't accept it. So it makes sense to fight.
I agree with you so much that we are told that it's just our nature to be destructive, and it's not. I disagree completely. And you make such a good point that we've only been this way for really a very short amount of time. Humans have lived in harmony with the earth for so much longer than the way we've been now.
For so long. So it's weird that we it's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like we know deep inside that it's not okay, that it's not natural, the mass production, the way we treat our animals, each other, the way it's just so much that we get apathic, because it's too much to take in, I think. And apathy is the biggest enemy of progress. Because when we stop caring, when it gets too much, and we're already depressed and anxious about our own things that's happening in our lives, and we forget how good it feels to care and how sexy activism is and how beautiful it is, and it gives meaning to a life. It gives sense of community, connection. It gives perspective. Like it really makes you happy. It's good for the mind.
Yeah, and for the soul. I think seeing all these challenges as an opportunity to rethink and then rebuild our world can be very exciting if we let it be, instead of distressing and depressing.
Yes.
So what role do you think music and art has in this conversation? You know, what do you hope to contribute in that way, or what inspiration do you get from art and music that does that?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this, actually. A lot in my career, because I've been fighting for the environment and for people to kind of open their eyes to what nature can offer us my whole career. And then through my career, I've seen my voice kind of change, get more angry, get more desperate. I've seen myself become way more like an activist in addition to a musician, and figuring out like how to make real change. But then I'm very like because I always tell everyone else that it's so important to not be overwhelmed by everything you're not doing. Just try to do something, and maybe next day you do something more. You try your best to live in harmony with yourself and to do something in your everyday life, to make small changes that can do amazing things for the world if you do these small changes for the rest of your life. And I think that's the true meaning, that we have to not scare each other away from the size of this problem, and to not make each other believe that we have to do everything right, because we don't. We all have things we can change, and we all have things we can't change, and you just do your best and you try to do at least one thing that's good. You know, sometimes that's good enough. For some people that should be good enough, but I'm just so afraid that we'll be scared away by not being as perfect and as good as an activist as Greta Thunberg. But you don't have to be her. She has her role and you have yours and I have mine. And music, I think, plays a huge role, because we talk about the environment way too political. Like it's like with statistics and numbers, and people don't understand these things. They don't emotionally connect to the way politicians talk about the environment, and that bothers me a lot. And music can talk, and art can talk, and movies can talk about it in a way that hits our hearts. And it has to hit the heart first. We have to genuinely care before we find it in ourselves that we want to fight. And so I think that's the biggest job for art, is to hit the heart.
I think that's so true. I think some of the films that we have now in the world, and artists and writers who are inspiring us, are doing so much more than any politician has ever done. It's so much more than policy and, you know, legal questions. It really is. We won't fight for something unless we really are connected to it. I think you make such a good point. And you spoke about something once that I heard, where you said that there's almost a healthy kind of anger that we can find that maybe has been in the world in past generations, but maybe our generation is still finding it, and taking that anger from wanting to protect something we care about and protect the ones we love and turning it into something constructive is so important. And I'd love to hear you speak about how you've found ways to do that, you know, probably through your music, but also maybe in your life.
Well, I always try to find ways to stir myself up, to stir around and mess my heart and body and soul up, and to never get too comfortable in just accepting that, okay, but that's how things are. I always try to ask questions and wonder and try to think, but could it be better, and why can't it be better? And you know, I'm a very big I don't like apathy and being numb. So I try my best to make music to do the opposite to you than to make you numb. Because I think we have gotten too comfortable. We have forgotten to like speak up and to be, but we are getting there. Now we are, like the last few years, we've gone much better. But it's like to really shout and scream and ask for change and not just accept the world for what it is, but to actively, understand that we have the power to really make changes and ask for change. And we are the change, and it's a very beautiful, like I have so much hope, I really do, for the future, because I see it in the young people's eyes, not necessarily young by age, but the people young of mind, who I see it in their eyes and their souls. I see it in that is more like a very obvious thing, that obviously if this hurts the planet so much, then we shouldn't do it. Like it's more of an obvious thing now. And you see even like big companies have to show like an environmental plan and have to make changes to be green. And like you see it even in the way people structurally build their businesses now compared to 10 years ago. It's like change is happening, even though we don't see it. It's really there. Because now no one wants to invest in a company without it having a conscious green plan. And I know it's really change is really happening, and I have so much hope.
Yeah, I love that's really the point of our show, is to tell those stories, because we believe if we see more examples, we build more momentum, and then with time, it just becomes something big, and the world can change very quickly once we all agree to really take the action we can, as you said. So thank you so much, Aurora. I think we're at time, and I want to respect your time, so thank you very much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Nathan. It was very nice speaking with you too. And good luck. I love this, like the name of your podcast, and the whole spirit in it is very beautiful. So thank you for doing what you do as well, and good luck with everything.
Oh, thank you. I wish you the most success, and we appreciate it, and we do it because we love it too. So thank you, and take care and enjoy the snow.
Yes, I will.
A big question for me coming away from our conversation with Aurora is, what is the role of art in our time? Can we expand our definition of art to include more than just human emotions and human relationships, and begin to consider nature, humanity at large, our values, and our collective existence more? Can we use art as a tool to ask big questions, to challenge our perceptions, and to share important ideas, and to build movements around certain ways of thinking and being? Artists who have done this in the past may have been seen as activists, but what if that sense of activism began to inform every type of art in our world today? Could we get outside of ourselves a little bit with what we choose to express in our art, and focus less on our daily struggles or our individual experiences and emotional ups and downs, and instead focus on building bigger ideas and questions into what we express, giving a whole new meaning to the art that we're creating? What if modern visual art began to ask spiritual and environmental questions everywhere we looked? What if more and more films encouraged us to think positively about ourselves and see possibilities where now we see only problems? What if music continued its tradition of challenging our ideas about ourselves and the world, and asked us to make better choices as it has done for centuries? Every artist will have their own perspective, their own ideas, their own frustrations, and personal solutions. But what if we begin to ask these questions together through our art? What could happen? Songs have sparked revolutions. Paintings have changed nations. Sculptures have altered societies, and theater has shifted paradigms and philosophies. Aurora spoke about the unique ability that art has to speak to the heart, to the soul, to something other than the mind, which is so focused on rationality and logic. And that's powerful. Imagine if more and more of us combined the power of art with this power of new ideas, which are designed to reshape our world for the better. I had a recent experience with a piece of art that did this recently that has really stuck with me. It was a short film called Amazonia 2041 and was directed by Sofia Acosta Varela and Juan Diego Monsalve. The film starts with exactly what has led us to this moment now, with destruction of the rainforest and ignorance of indigenous rights to inhabit and protect their lands. It addressed corporate interest, it addressed government corruption, and everything that we're aware of right now. And then it went on to create an alternative future where by 2041, the Amazon headwaters region and the entire Amazon forest became sort of a focal point, a central hub of an idea of protecting the earth in collaboration with indigenous communities, activists, and citizens around the world. Using the power of storytelling, it made a potential future real. Instead of just focusing on the problem, it said, okay, here's where we're starting, here's where we are right now, and here's where we could go. If we truly collaborate across different elements of society, if we hold corporations and governments accountable, and if we really value and prioritize the health of local ecosystems and the earth above everything else, we could start a global movement centered around the Amazon. The film was narrated by two young indigenous women, and it's really beautifully created. And it was so inspiring. I think I had chills the entire time I was watching it. You can actually watch the 9-minute film on YouTube, both in the original Spanish, narrated by the young indigenous women, or dubbed in English. We'll post links to both YouTube videos on our episode page for today's episode. The whole time I was watching, I couldn't stop thinking, this is what art can be. It can give us a vision for what's possible. It can make potential solutions real for us, ones that we haven't yet created, or tell the stories of solutions that do exist. It can ask important questions that need urgent answers. And it can inspire and empower us in ways I don't think we've even begun to explore or discover, really. So, what's stopping us? Let's start. Our challenge for you today, which we do during every episode, is to create something that expresses your emotions or ideas around the current state of the world. Express yourself artistically in some way. Give yourself that outlet. Let it take whatever shape most reflects how you feel now. Let your emotions move out of your mind and body and into something creative, from the heart, from the soul. Maybe you feel anxiety at certain situations out there in the world, and you want to be part of a solution, but you don't know how. I think we could all relate to that to some degree right now. Express that in whatever way feels right for you. Maybe you feel hopeful. Maybe you have a vision for something about our world that could change right now, and you want to flesh that out on paper in a sketch. Or maybe you feel unsure about what you would like your contribution to be to make the world a better place. And you can use this as an opportunity to brainstorm and explore your own feelings and ideas. Try not to control it too much or think about it too much. Just let it flow. See what comes. And then if you feel comfortable, share it with others. If you're a musician, consider composing a piece of music or writing a song. If you're a visual artist, you could do something that you're familiar with or try something that you've never done before. Any of us can make a short film in this world of technology. There's so many options for creativity available to us. And then, if you feel comfortable, share it with others, or keep it to yourself if you'd prefer. If you'd like to share it, find us on social media and send us what you created. We'd love to see what you make. We're on Instagram at WeCanRemakeTheWorld. You can send it to us by email, podcast@remaketheworld.com. You can find us pretty much everywhere. So we'd love to see what you make if you're open to sharing. Huge thank you to Aurora for her time and her beautiful spirit. And thank you also to the teams at Made Music Norway, Petroleum Records, and Universal Music for their support in making today's episode possible. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with others. Send it to those in your circle who you think would be inspired and uplifted by stories like these. Be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer, SoundCloud, and all the rest of them. to be sure that you're the first to know when we release new episodes with more inspiring people who are changing the world every day. People like Vandana Shiva in India, who is protecting Indian farmers and Indian agriculture from global corporate interest, who we had on the show last month. Or Matt Josiak, who we had on our show late last year, the founder of New York City's Rethink Food, which is totally rethinking food systems to give people who don't have enough to eat access to healthy, freshly made, delicious food throughout New York City and around the United States. There are incredible people and organizations changing the world every day, and our mission is to make sure that you know about them. Whatever platform you're listening on, especially Apple Podcasts, give us a rating and a review, which helps us to reach more people out there with these messages of hope and possibility. And if you're not a fan of Aurora already, you're missing out. Look her up on Spotify or on your favorite music platform and catch up on her first few albums. And be sure to give a listen to her newest album, which we mentioned just came out in January of this year, called The Gods We Can Touch. You can follow Aurora on Instagram at Aurora Music, and of course on Facebook, TikTok, and other social platforms. And finally, catch Aurora on tour. I have friends who've seen her in New York mostly and have said it was one of the best shows they've ever seen. She starts this year in the UK on March 27th before heading to North America for shows in all major cities across the US and Canada, and then back to Europe starting in June. I'll be at her show in London on April 6th. If you're going, give me a shout. podcast@wecanremaketheworld.com. Would love to meet up. Visit us at wecanremaketheworld.com for more episodes, more inspiring stories, more resources, information, and tools to help you find and make your impact today. Thanks for being here with us. Join us for our upcoming episodes featuring Patrick Rose, Executive Director of the Save the Manatees Club in Florida, and the team from Some of Us, a hugely impactful global corporate watchdog organization. And remember, true change starts with us. So let's start. We'll leave you with a bit of encouragement from Aurora herself. See you in a couple weeks.